Why was it important for you and for your team to do this story? Why was that so important?
Well, I mean, after Mr. Irsay passed, we started looking into the circumstances surrounding his passing, and pretty quickly encountered some people who were close to him who had concerns that A, that perhaps the cause of death was not natural, and that it wasn't sufficiently being investigated, and that the treatment he had been receiving over the last 2 years of his life, these people felt contributed, if not prompted, his relapse.
You guys do a great job of outlining in the article. Here's who we talked to. Here's why we're keeping them anonymous. Here are the people we've reached out to in terms of officials, right? Walk us through the process for you guys really since May and kind of what that's looked like in terms of gathering some of this information.
Well, we started with a death certificate, which indicated that there was no autopsy or toxicology workup, which we found unusual and odd given Mr. Irsay's substance abuse history. We then just started calling as many people as we could who we would think would have had sort of direct insight in what was going on with Mr. Irsay the last few years of his life, and pretty quickly developed a number of people who told us that indeed he had been going through a relapse, and that in addition to opioid pills, he'd been getting ketamine, which, as we outline, is a risky drug to give to somebody with substance abuse issues, and also risky to give to someone with a heart condition, which Mr. Irsay did have. And so yeah, we found it was newsworthy of an issue to explore to begin with, but then we thought there were public service components to it, given the concerns about this doctor and the treatment he was giving.
With whether it's specifically about Mr. Irsay's life or just in general, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you hope your audience will take from this article?
Well, I mean, the first is that, I mean, there are significant questions about how Mr. Irsay actually passed away, what the actual proximate cause of death was, and this doctor's role in the pretty rapid decline in Mr. Irsay's health the last 2 years of his life, and then his death. And on top of that, it appears. I wouldn't say it appears. The Colts misled the public about what was going on with Mr. Irsay over the last 2 years of his life, and the manner in which the team handled his death allows for the possibility that it wasn't sufficiently investigated.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, you cover sports, you work in sports. How does an organization protect the privacy of the family, but serve the public and be forward facing about that? What does that balance look like?
It's ultimately a question, I think, for people in the public relations space. With Mr. Irsay and the Colts, there's a little bit of a difference here than any other private individual. First off, because he wasn't just the owner, he was the chief executive of the franchise. And so this was not a figurehead. This was someone who was actively involved in the management and oversight of the operation. And then also, he ran this charitable operation, this charitable drive, Kicking the Stigma, which is still an operation that was in part built around his alleged transparency and the team's transparency around his substance abuse issues.
So much of this article, and you mentioned it too, is focused around this doctor that Mr. Irsay had a relationship with. Talk to us about kind of what you learned about that doctor and their relationship.
The doctor is a gentleman named Harry Haratunian. He goes by Dr. Harry. He's a prominent addiction specialist based in California. Used to work at the Betty Ford Center, the renowned addiction clinic there. And Mr. Irsay consulted a number of addiction specialists over the years, and people close to him viewed this Dr. Harry with concern because they believed that among the doctors Mr. Irsay consulted, Dr. Haratunian would give him the more dangerous opioid pills that fuel his addiction, the pills containing oxycodone and hydrocodone, the stuff that he was intoxicated on in 2014 when he was pulled over and arrested, and what ultimately we report and believe led to the two overdoses he sustained in December 2023, the last of which I think inflicted pretty severe damage on Mr. Irsay, and people we spoke with say he really was never the same again.
And then in terms of going back to May, when he passed there in California, what did you guys learn about the day he died and where this doctor was, and the fact that he kind of signed off on that too? Walk us through that process.
Irsay died in a presidential bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel. He'd been there for a few days. This Dr. Hartunian, Dr. Harry, was staying at the hotel as well and overseeing his care. And so when the police got there, the doctor told them the death was natural causes. Mr. Irsay had been battling some chronic health issues, which was true. He did have some chronic health issues, some of which, we believe were contributed to by the relapse he was enduring. But it's unclear if Dr. Hartunian was transparent with police about the drugs that Mr. Irsay was taking over the last years of his life, these opioid pills and the ketamine in particular, which, as we point out, ketamine can lead to cardiac arrest if you have conditions like the heart conditions Mr. Irsay had, which are documented on his death certificate.
And I think a lot of people wonder, especially after reading your article, a lot of people will wonder, well, is there any kind of investigation now? Are police looking into anyone? What did you guys learn about that?
I mean, we have certainly been in contact with the relevant authorities here, and if there are any developments, we'll, try to report on them. As of right now, there are no, as far as we're aware, active law enforcement investigations into either Mr. Irsay's death or the treatment he received over the last few years of his life.
What questions still remain? What's still unanswered in all of this?
If Mr. Irsay truly died of cardiac arrest caused by pneumonia, as the death certificate indicates, and if the treatment he received from this doctor over the last 2 years of his life played a role.
How do you hope this article will also maybe raise some awareness to some of that?
This component is not new, but it's just a sad reality that in addiction therapy, there are some specialists out there who will supply their patients with addictive substances. And, ketamine is, it's a treatment. It's a drug that has shown promise as a treatment for depression. So it's not, completely out of medical bounds or unethical or illogical to think you consider taking ketamine with depression. But if you have substance abuse issues, it is not something that is considered appropriate this time.
Thank you for explaining that. Is there anything else that you felt was really important to touch on? There's so much, and we appreciate all the work that you guys have done, but is there anything else that you felt was important, maybe especially for the Indianapolis community?
No, I think he covered it all. It's tough. I don't. Mr. Irsay was a beloved figure, and I understand why. And the people we spoke with, the people who are telling us about his relapse, they all loved him too, and they believe this doctor played a role in his death, and they're alarmed and outraged that. At the manner in which his death was handled, and the fact that this degree of secrecy is ongoing around his health the last few years, which they believe. Look, if this death was not natural causes, that the manner in which the team has handled his health and his death is allowing it to not be sufficiently investigated.